Om Sarashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmaracharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. Be seated, please. Parameshwara. Good. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahavidyan Karavavahai Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvisha Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Good. We're recording okay? Very good, thank you. Welcome to you all, and welcome to our students watching these classes online. This is a very, I think we can leave the PowerPoint off until I start teaching the text. So there you go, thank you. I'll tell you when to turn it on. It's wonderful to first to have finished our study of the Bhagavad Gita after 2.5 years. It was a wonderful study, every class of it. And now it's even more wonderful, I think, to begin a new text, the Uddhava Gita from the Bhagavata Purana. We'll see some parallels between the Uddhava Gita and the Bhagavad Gita. I'll try to bring those out in today's class. We'll also see that the language and the style of the Uddhava Gita is quite different than the Bhagavad Gita. So it'll be something very new and fresh. Many of you have studied the Bhagavad Gita for a long time. You may not have studied this Uddhava Gita, so it'll be a new study. There's a bit of introduction I'd like to share with you, just so that we have a proper orientation before we begin the text. You may or may not know that term Bhagavad Gita or Uddhava Gita, the use of the word Gita in this manner often refers to a small section of spiritual teachings excerpted from a larger text. That certainly is true of the Bhagavad Gita, 700 verses excerpted from the Mahabharata. In the Mahabharata, there are several Gitas. Of course, Bhagavad Gita is the one most studied, but there's an Anu Gita, there's a Manki Gita, a whole variety of Gitas. And we've actually looked at some of those years before when we studied the Vedantic teachings of the Mahabharata. So just as we can excerpt the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita from the Mahabharata, here we excerpt about 1,100 verses from the Bhagavata Purana. The Bhagavata Purana, one of the 18 Mahapuranas authored by Vyasa or attributed to Vyasa. The Bhagavata Purana has 12 books. Mahabharata has 18, not that it makes any great difference. The Bhagavata Purana is quite a bit smaller, of course, than the 96,000 verse Mahabharata. Bhagavata Purana probably about 18,000 verses, still quite large. And scholars think that the Bhagavata Purana is one of the later Puranas. Scholars will date it to maybe 8th century, but scholars go on arguing and arguing about it. I don't think it makes a big difference, the exact date. What's important, of course, is its content. So in the 12 books, of the Bhagavata Purana. The 10th book is the most focused upon because we find all the wonderful stories about Sri Krishna mostly occur in the 10th book. However, this Uddhava Gita, by the way, also called Hamsa Gita, and although I rarely see the name Hamsa Gita used, but it is another name for it. So this Uddhava Gita comes not from the 10th book of the Bhagavata Purana, but from the following book, the 11th book. It encompasses 24 chapters of that 11th book. And those 24, as I said, those 24 chapters come to 1,100 verses. That's much longer than the Bhagavad Gita. And what I have done in preparing for these classes is done some abridging of that text. So from 24 chapters, I've selected 9 chapters for our study. And the chapters I've left out are left out for good reasons. You will find them less relevant. So specifically, I've chosen chapters that are most relevant to a student of Vedanta. That's our orientation here. So the selection was done very carefully according to which chapters are most relevant for students of Vedanta. And the 9 chapters I've chosen come to about 380 verses. It's about half of the length of the Bhagavad Gita. Some of the parallels. First of all, a parallel between Bhagavata Purana and Mahabharata. Who is attributed with the authorship of both is Vyasa. So Vyasa is important in both cases. In the Mahabharata, if you remember the story within a story within a story, you have Vyasa told all this to his main disciple, Vaishampayana. And then, really speaking, the whole of the Mahabharata is not the whole of it, because there's another outer story. So in the Mahabharata, you get the story then of Vaishampayana narrating all of this to King Janamejaya. So the parallelism is in the Bhagavata Purana. Again, we start with Vyasa, but Vyasa narrating not to his disciple Vaishampayana, but narrating to his son, Shuka, Shukacharya. So he narrates all this to his son, Shuka, and then the Bhagavata Purana, just as the dialogue between Vaishampayana and Janamejaya is like a dominant feature of the Mahabharata. A dominant feature of this Bhagavata Purana is a dialogue between Shuka, the son of Vyasa, and King Parikshit. King Parikshit is, by the way, grandson of Arjuna. Everyone is related to everyone. I don't... That's... You know that better than me. That's Hindu culture. Everyone is related to everyone. Anyway, so King Parikshit has been cursed by a snake to die in 7 days. And King Parikshit, seeking spiritual guidance, seeks out Shuka, and their dialogue forms the body of that Bhagavata Purana. Some other connections is, so King Parikshit is bitten by this snake. It turns out that his son is Janamejaya of the Mahabharata, and Janamejaya, as you remember, conducted a snake sacrifice. So the snake killed his father, so he wants to wipe out all the snakes. So there's some connections between the epic Mahabharata and the Purana Bhagavata. By the way, also called Bhagavatam. Bhagavata Purana or Bhagavatam. I'll just mention in passing that there's a wonderful commentary on that Purana by Sridhara Swami, and I'll be when I prepare for classes, I'll be studying that commentary. Okay, now let's talk about Uddhava. Every Hindu, all these names, Sanskrit names, always have a root meaning. So dhru or dhava is to tremble, up. To tremble up gives the meaning of joy, elation. So his name could be translated, if you want to translate it very literally, as you could translate it as joy or elation. It turns out he is a cousin of Sri Krishna and very devoted friend. And sometimes cousins aren't close. This is not the case. They are, that's another, we won't talk about that right now. And these two were very close. And Uddhava is best known from a story in the 10th book of the Bhagavata Purana, where when Sri Krishna left Vrindavana, after defeating Kamsa, he left. I think he went to Dwaraka at that time. But all the gopis left behind in Vrindavan were just so incredibly depressed. So Sri Krishna, being very concerned about the gopis he left behind, he sent Uddhava to Vrindavana to go and console the gopis. So Uddhava arrived there, and he was ready to start helping the gopis. And the story evolves in a very surprising and wonderful way. Turns out that the gopis end up helping him. He went to help the gopis. The gopis ended up helping him. He wanted to understand what devotion really was and who could be a better teacher of how bhakti is to be practiced than those gopis. So Uddhava remained in Vrindavana for, I think, 6 months, learning from the gopis how to practice bhakti. So that story comes in the prior book of the Bhagavata Purana. We begin in the 11th book, where more consoling. So remember, he was sent to console the gopis. Think of Bhagavad Gita now. Sri Krishna is consoling Arjuna. And in this Uddhava Gita, Sri Krishna is again consoling Uddhava. And it is. It's actually an exact parallel. Just like Sri Krishna consoles Arjuna, but for a very different reason. Arjuna is being consoled because so many of his beloved family members and friends are about to die on the battlefield. So Sri Krishna consoles Arjuna in that context. In the Uddhava Gita, Sri Krishna consoles Uddhava in a very different context. Actually, in an equally intense context, and that is Sri Krishna is going to leave, not Dwaraka, but leave this bhumi, leave the earth. He's going to return to Vaikuntha Loka. By the way, when you return to a heavenly abode, it means here you die. So Sri Krishna's incarnation is coming to an end. We'll talk about that at some point. So Sri Krishna's incarnation is coming to an end. Yeah, that'll come in the text itself. We'll talk about it there. And so he's about to leave this earthly realm, and Uddhava, his beloved cousin and friend, is very sad, and Sri Krishna consoles him in that context. Okay, we're almost done with this introduction. So of the 24 chapters, we will start with chapter 2, not chapter 1. So let me summarize for you chapter 1 so that you can pick up the thread easily enough. Of course, it opens with Shuka narrating all these stories to King Parikshit, who is going to die in 7 days. And the story he narrates is that of Brahma, Shiva, and all the gods have assembled and come down to Dwaraka to address Sri Krishna. So they call it a sabha, a meeting, but usually in meetings, human beings come. This is a meeting between Sri Krishna, an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, and all the gods. And by the way, the text goes on and on and on. Typical story, typical style, I should say, of both Mahabharata and Puranas is detail after detail after detail. So just all the names of all these different kinds of gods are given, and they come to Sri Krishna, and their message to Sri Krishna might surprise you. And they tell Sri Krishna, you have fulfilled our request. Now, what did they mean by their request? Well, Sri Krishna was incarnated at a time when the world was falling apart, so to speak. People were acting very adharmically, and not only did human beings pray for an incarnation of Lord Vishnu to come and protect them, but even the gods prayed for this incarnation to take place. So not only did people want Sri Krishna to come, but even the gods wanted Sri Krishna to come as an incarnation. So they approached Sri Krishna and said, you have fulfilled our request. Not only that, but you have fulfilled your duties. Maybe I'll talk about it here. Yeah, there's some teachings about avatars that are not well understood. For example, you are born due to your prarabdha karma. Now, how does Lord Vishnu get born? He doesn't have any karma. He's Ishvara, he's God. So it's not due to Lord Vishnu's karma that he got born as Krishna, but an unusual phenomenon when so many people, and even the gods, pray for blessings, pray for an appearance of, in this case, an appearance of Lord Vishnu to save them from their suffering. It is the karma. By the way, prayer is a karma, is it not? Prayer is karma. So due to these karmas of all the people, Lord Vishnu got born. And just like your prarabdha karma is limited, when it's exhausted, your life will come to an end. In the same way, the karma because of which Lord Vishnu incarnated as Sri Krishna, that's also finite. So an incarnation is for a period of time determined not by the deity's own prarabdha karmas, which don't exist, but the length of life, the span of life, is determined by the karmas of the prayers of the people who invoked, as it were, this incarnation. So, Sri Krishna has concluded his prarabdha karma is almost exhausted. The gods know this. That's why they've come. They've come to bid farewell, really speaking. They know that Sri Krishna's prarabdha, I shouldn't call it prarabdha, the karmas because of which he got incarnated, they are almost exhausted. The gods in heaven knew that, so they came to Sri Krishna to bid him farewell. You think Sri Krishna didn't know? He, he knew very well that his prarabdha, his karmas were coming to an end, that his life would come to an end. So Sri Krishna tells the gods, yes, I know that my days are coming to an end. I know that my duties are fulfilled. So thank you for coming. See ya. Sorry to use this American English. See ya. And the gods all return to the heavens. Then, in the last part of chapter 1, Uddhava comes into the scene. And Uddhava has a big concern. This is in order to understand how this Uddhava Gita fits into the story. This you really have to understand. The Uddhava and Krishna were both part of this Yadu clan. They were Yadavas. And the Yadavas, at this point, were fighting amongst each other like cats and dogs. They were, it was like, different parts, like in the Mahabharata, different parts of a family fight with each other. So here we have the Yadavas in factions fighting with each other. And this fighting, it's this tribal heritage of mankind. We see that tribalism, one tribe fighting against the other. So we see that continuing. Sadly, we see it in Israel. So there's Israeli tribes against the Arab tribes. Terrible. Everyone, by the way, they're both Arabs and Israelis are both suffering terribly as a consequence of this. But on a more humorous note, today we can find in Washington, we have the Republican tribe and the Democrat tribe. They're at loggerheads. They're fighting like cats and dogs. Anyway, we'll refer to this fighting business in just a few minutes. Anyway, the Yadavas are fighting with each other to such an extent that they're about to, the word is implode. That is, a civil war is about to break out in which the entire lineage will perish. They're going to literally wipe themselves out, as mankind almost did during the Cold War, right? If somebody pushed that red button and initiated the first nuclear weapon, mankind would have been wiped out due to pride and arrogance and ignorance. So just as we could have wiped ourselves out due to pride and arrogance and ignorance, the Yadavas are about to wipe themselves out. And Uddhava is very concerned for Krishna. He says, "Why, what are you?" By the way, they're both part of that family. They're not fighting, but they're both part of the family. And Uddhava is, what are we going to do? Our family is imploding. Our family is self-destructing. What are we going to do? And Sri Krishna says, well, and this is also a little bit in the, in what we'll see today. Sri Krishna says, not only are they imploding, but I'm getting out of here before things get too bad. Sorry to put it in these kind of terms, but that's what it amounts to. Sri Krishna says, I don't want to be here for this terrible disaster. He says, I'm planning to leave before it's over. I'm planning to return to my heavenly abode, Vaikuntha Loka. Then surprisingly, Uddhava says, oh, take me with you. Now, where is Sri Krishna going? Heaven. So when Uddhava says, take me with you, that implies his own death in order for him to travel along with Sri Krishna. And you can see the idea then that Uddhava must be terribly upset, both because his family is imploding and because his beloved Sri Krishna is leaving. And in that context, that's the end of chapter 1, in that context, chapter 2 begins, where Sri Krishna addresses Uddhava. Remember, it's all being narrated by Shuka to Parikshit, but mostly we'll see Uddhava and Sri Krishna talking. Okay, so where we end, take me with you. And with that, thank you for your patience. Our introduction is over. We can begin with the verses now. Most of the verses are in that same short Anushtubh Chandas, that metrical form that most of the Mahabharata is written in. Of course, we recite this in a different way than the Bhagavad Gita, so we'll use a different raga. Okay. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha, Shri Bhagavanu Vacha, Yadatha Ma Mahabhaga. Oh, sorry, that didn't go. There we go. Listen. Yadatha Mam Mahabhaga, Yadatha Mam Mahabhaga, Tatchikirshitameva me, Chatchikirshitameva me, Brahma Bhavo Lokapalaha, Brahma Bhavo Lokapalaha, Svarvasam me bhikangshati, Svarvasam me vibhanshati. This is the beginning now of the second chapter. We've jumped over chapter 1. And we begin here. So Sri Krishna, Sri Bhagavan, Uvacha, he said here to Uddhava. And he says, Mahabhaga, O blessed one, O Uddhava, Yad Atha Mam. What you have Atha said, what you have told Mam, me, what you have said to me. So remember, Uddhava said that this family is imploding. What are we going to do? And Sri Krishna knows, yes, the family is imploding, and Sri Krishna is going to say, it's time for us both to get out of here. So he says, what you have told me about leaving Dwaraka before the family implodes, Sri Krishna says, tat, that, chikirshitam eva, that was already desired for me. I've also been thinking about that. We've been thinking alike. It's time to get out of here before the family implodes. And then Sri Krishna goes on to refer to what just took place in chapter 1, immediately before Uddhava came. Sri Krishna says that he was visited by whom? Brahmaji. Bhavaha is a name for Shiva. So Brahma, Shiva, and Lokapalaha, kind of summarizing all the other gods. So all of these other gods, Abhikankshinaha, they were desirous of me Svarvasam. They desired that I should return to heaven. Svarvasam, to live in heaven. They also requested me to return to my heavenly abode. Then their discussion continues. Maya nishparitam hyatra, Maya nishparitam hyatra, Deva karyam sheshataha, Deva karyam sheshataha, Yarartam avatirnoham, Yarartam avatirnoham, Amshena Brahmanartinaha, Amshena Brahmanartinaha. Start in the second line. Deva Karyam. Karyam, duties. The duties of Deva, the divine duties of Sri Krishna. The divine duties of Sri Krishna, third line. Yadartam, for the sake of those duties, aham avatirnaha. For the sake of fulfilling those duties, aham, I, avatirnaha, I have descended. You know, the word avatara literally means to come down. Not that heaven is only up, but that's the metaphor. Heaven is up, metaphorically speaking. So therefore, avatara is a descent of God. Here, avatirna, as a participle, Sri Krishna says, I have descended, yadartam, for that sake, for the sake of deva karyam, for the sake of fulfilling my divine duties, and asheshataha, completely, now go to the first line, completely nishpaditam maya. That has been completed by me. Atra hi, atra here. In this world, in this earthly realm, all that was my duty to accomplish as an avatara, impelled by the karmas of all the people here. So, asheshataha, completely, nishpaditam maya, that has been completed by me. That which was now the last line, that was Brahma artinaha, that was requested by Brahma, Shiva, and all the gods. So that was requested of me, amshena, along with, amsha here, according to the commentator, refers to Balaram. So along with Sri Krishna's amsha, his right, what do you say, right arm. His right arm is his brother, Balaram. So Sri Krishna says that the duties that were to be performed, you could say by me and by Balarama, that would be a fine translation. Those duties have been fulfilled and, been fulfilled as Brahma requested. Then, continuing to talk to Uddhava, Kulam Vaishapa Nirdagdam, Kulam Vaishapa Nirdagdam, Nangshatyanyona Vigrahat, Nakshatyanyona Vigrahat, Samudra Sapta Mehnyetam, Samudra Sapta Mehnyetam, Purim Cha Plavayishyati, Purim cha plavayishyati. Kulam, family. Whose family? Family of Krishna and Uddhava. Their family, he says, Vai, indeed, shapa nirdhagdam, is cursed. Of course, they're cursing themselves. What? Is it not so? Think about what's happening in Washington. Whose fault is it? Both. Republican tribe and the Democratic tribe. And in Israel, whose fault is it? Both. Palestinian tribe and Israeli tribe. Anyone who says one side is right and the other side is in wrong, it's more complicated than that. It's really, really complicated. You look back through if you understand the history of Israel and the history of the Palestinian people, they have both been terribly wronged. They have both suffered so much. So both tribes are at fault for the war taking place today. These tribes curse themselves. So this kulam, this family of the Yadavas, is shapa nirdagdam, literally being burnt by this curse the curse of arrogance, pride, and ignorance. Imagine if you could take the Democratic and Republican tribes and remove all of their arrogance, pride, and ignorance. How wonderfully our Congress would function. Similarly, if you could take the Israelis and Arabs, Palestinians, and remove all their pride, arrogance, and ignorance, they could live together harmoniously. They've been fighting like cats and dogs for a long time. So this is the shapa, the curse is indeed our own pride, ignorance, and arrogance. So this family, Nachyati in the second line, will be destroyed. Anyonya vigrahat. Vigraha is war, battle. Anyonya, mutual, by fighting with each other. This family will be destroyed. They will destroy each other. The family will implode. Not only that, but Sri Krishna, being an avatara, has access to even more knowledge. Any good observer could observe that the Yadavas were about to implode. Just like a good observer could predict what's going to happen in Washington, a skillful observer could predict what's happening today in Israel. Obvious, it was bound to happen just due to all the circumstances. Now, Sri Krishna knows more than what a typical observer would know. And what does Sri Krishna know more than that? He says, Saptame anhi etam. And those words have to be broken up. They're a little tricky. Anha is a word for day. Anhi, anhan actually. Anhi, on the Saptame anhi, on the seventh day, etam purim, this city, samudraha, the ocean, plavayishyati, will submerge. In 7 days, the ocean will rise up and submerge this city, which apparently happened. There have even been, I think, archaeological work done in Dwaraka to locate portions of the portion of the city which was submerged in the sea. So Sri Krishna says this is about to happen. The family will implode and the city will be immersed in water. Pretty grim stuff. Oops, wrong way. There we go. There we go. Then he continues. Yarhyevayam maya tyakto, yarhyevayam maya tyakto, loko yam nashta mangalaha, loko yam nashta mangalaha, bhavishyat yacharat sadho, bhavishyat yacharat sadho, kalinapi nirakritaha, kalinapi nirakritaha. Yarhi, let's take it as when. Yarhi, when. Ayam lokaha, when this place, when this city, Dwaraka, this city, ayam, the city which is nashta mangalaha, whose good fortune has been destroyed. So previously, Dwaraka was a thriving city, thriving culture, but now, due to the fighting amongst the Yadavas, that's all coming to an end. So this city, Ayam Lokaha, which is Nashta Mangalaha, which has lost its blessings, Yarhi Maya Tyaktaha, when I leave this city, Dwaraka, Then what? Bhavishyati sadho, at the end of the third line. O saintly one. He's addressing Uddhava. Sadho, O Uddhava, bhavishyati. There will occur a charat immediately. Sri Krishna says, when I leave, bhavishyati acharat, immediately what will occur is the nirakritaha, the destruction of that city. And the destruction of that city, how? Kalina api, due to the arrival of the Kali Yuga. Now, we can talk a little bit about this Kali Yuga. So, as you all know, the Kali Yuga is called the era of strife, and the word Kali has many meanings, one of which is indeed strife. According to the mythology found in the Bhagavata Purana itself, the Kali Yuga has a very specific beginning date. And that specific beginning date is the day Sri Krishna leaves, which is right around the corner. As they say, Sri Krishna is about to leave. So Kali Yuga is about to set in. And in that era of strife, then the friction between the Yadavas will grow to such an extent that they will destroy each other. So this is the Kali Yuga, the Yuga in which we live today, which might explain what's happening in Washington and Israel. Allow me to make an important comment here. Kali Yuga is the worst of the 4 yugas and the last of the 4 yugas before the end of this kalpa, this cycle of creation. And based on that, many people assume that this is the worst time in human civilization, based on this teaching of Kali Yuga. And I want to suggest that it's absolutely wrong to draw that conclusion, that this is the worst of times in the history of mankind. First of all, let's separate mythology and history. Bhagavata is mythology. Mythology are stories meant to teach spiritual principles. I think one of the most common mistakes made in the Hindu tradition is to mistake mythological stories as being historical. So in other Puranas, we have Lord Shiva and Brahma getting into a big argument about who's mightier. And you've heard me joke about this. Did that argument take place on a Thursday afternoon or a Sunday morning? You get my point. The stories in the Puranas are not historical stories. There may have been some historical basis for the stories. I think for the Mahabharata, most certainly there was a historical basis for it, but there's so much mythology that's been layered on in the Mahabharata. The same must be true about the Bhagavata Purana. Perhaps there is some historicity in aspects of the story. By the way, we have no way of determining this, no way of knowing this. But let's be very clear. The Bhagavata Purana is not a history book. If these Puranas were a history book, then tell me what is the day when Brahma and Shiva had their fight. It is ahistorical. It's not historical. That's why we can use the word mythology. Some kind of Orthodox Hindus bristle at that word mythological. Mythological doesn't mean silly or unreal or unimportant. Mythological means non-historical. That's all it means. Stories can impart tremendous wisdom without being historical. Think about how much you've learned from pieces of fiction. You've read novels which have changed your thinking and taught you so much. So the fact that the Mahabharata and Puranas are not history books is not demeaning this tradition at all. In fact, in my opinion, sorry to make a big issue of this, but it's quite an issue today. And that is, some people in India and elsewhere are arguing that no, we have to take these are our sacred scriptures. We have to accept them as being absolutely true, and not to do so is demeaning to our Hindu tradition. You know, there are people who feel that way today, and it's kind of a big issue in India today with a fairly Hindu, not fairly, a Hindu government and a strong secular movement. So that strong secular movement is bristling about the Hindus, and the Hindu government is bristling over this. More tribes, by the way. Another example. Anyway, part of the Hindu reaction to the secularism is to cling to these scriptures. These are our sacred scriptures. Don't you dare say anything negative about them. In satsang last week, some of you were here, there was a young woman arguing that based on our scriptures, we know that they performed brain surgery in India 2,000 years ago. How do we know that? Scriptures say so. I treated her with a lot of respect, but I suggested this is the same mistake our Christian friends make. They take their scriptures literally. So whatever reference she had found about brain surgery in India 2,000 years ago, that reference could not possibly be a historical fact. It's just not possible. Now, again, some Orthodox Hindus bristle if I make such a statement. They say it's demeaning to our tradition to reject the accuracy of what these scriptures say. I think it's the other way around. To be a fundamentalist and insist on the literal historical truth of our scriptures, to me, that's demeaning. It makes Hindus look like, Christians. I mean, in the sense, in the fundamentalist sense, it makes Hindus look like fundamentalist Christians. And of course, the Hindus who have that position, we can consider them fundamentalist Hindus. So this fundamentalism, let us define it as an insistence on the literal and historical truth of every little bit that you find in the scriptures. This young woman was convinced that, we talked about the Mahabharata. She was absolutely convinced that they had vehicles that flew through the air and weapons that were like atomic bombs. She was absolutely convinced. And I couldn't dissuade her. I mean, it's because it's an emotional issue. And as I said, I at the end of our discussion, I say, I know I can't change your opinion. I respect your opinion, and I wish you well. Those were my closing words to her, and I meant it, because this is an emotional issue. Is there anything wrong with being emotionally attached to your religion? That's a good thing. To embrace your own religion, whatever the religion is, to embrace it sincerely and deeply is a good thing. But this fundamentalism comes in. And my guru had a nice definition of fundamentalism. Very simple and very true. He called it non-thinking religion. Perfect. Non-thinking religion, which means when you in a religious context, don't think. That's what it means. So when the scripture tells you something that's impossible, vehicles flying through the air, atomic bombs, brain surgery 2,000 years ago, then don't think, don't question. Isn't that fundamentalism? Anyway, this is a little bit of a politically loaded topic, and if I have rubbed any of you the wrong way, I apologize, but I feel very strongly about what I've just shared with you. I feel that by clinging to this historicity of non-historical things is not helping. And just let me reiterate this comment. I am not blasting the Hindu rite. I just said I respect that emotional dedication, but it is a non-thinking religion in that there's no more critical thinking. How could there possibly be flying vehicles and atomic bombs and brain surgery? You need not turn off your critical thinking when it comes to religion. And I would say you should not only need not. In my opinion, it's a huge mistake whenever we turn off our critical faculties and simply swallow things whole, as they say, accept things with andha vishwasa, with blind faith. To me, that is far more harmful to the Hindu tradition than calling out the non-historicity or inaccuracy of certain things said in Scripture. So once again, I respect the Hindu rite because their intent is to support and strengthen Hinduism. Wonderful. But their means of doing so, by dropping critical thinking, by adopting the strategy of the fundamentalists, to me that strategy is flawed. So the intent of the Hindu rite is wonderful, but the strategy they've adopted, in my opinion, is wrong. And everything I've just shared with you for the last 10 minutes is my opinion. That's different from scriptural teachings, which means you don't have to accept what I've just said. I feel it strongly, but if you feel differently, I respect your opinion completely. And that's already, that's it. What I mean to say is I have no desire to be involved in any kind of politics. Here I've dipped my toes into the political realm a little bit, but I will not dip my toes any further into this political realm because it is a problem. Okay, let me finish up this last point, coming back to I went off on quite a tangent there, just to bring it back. Kali Yuga. So, the scripture says we have reached the Kali Yuga when it's the most terrible, terrible time. History books tell us otherwise. History books tell us otherwise. There is less war today, less illness today, less suffering today than any earlier period in mankind. That's what history books tell us. That's what anthropologists tell us. If you want to read someone, read Steven Pinker. He has analyzed this quite a bit. Now, no doubt, it looks grim. You read the news about what's happening in Washington and what's happening in Israel, it looks horrible. It doesn't look horrible, it is horrible. But that's not the only thing happening, right? We all have this tendency of focusing on what's wrong to such an extent that we overlook all the things that are good. So we get a skewed perception of the world in which we live. By focusing on the problem, and I'm not saying we should ignore the problems, but I'm saying we should have a balanced perspective. And that is, the problems in Washington and Israel are horrible problems. Thank goodness we live in the 21st century when we can handle those problems more effectively than we could in any prior period of time. The problems are terrible, but we as a civilization of human beings, we are in better shape today in spite of those problems. Of course, there's absolutely no scope for complacency here. That doesn't mean we can say, oh, we're doing okay, we can ignore these problems. Absolutely not. No room for complacency. Dharma demands that we are all engaged, we all share this planet, so therefore we all share in the responsibility of solving the problems of this planet for the welfare of all. Okay, this will be a good place to conclude for today. And see a number of closing comments here, announcements. First of all these classes will be uploaded and will be made available on our website. Also, the text that we're using is available. If you'd like to print out a copy for yourself, you can print out a copy from our website. Sometimes we have to cancel classes. Sometimes I'm not feeling well. Sometimes the weather won't allow us. So we're coming close to winter now. So be sure that you're signed up on our program announcements list to receive emails, and then check your emails before you come. You know, if you sign up and don't check your emails, then it doesn't help much. Okay. Also, I'm supposed to mention at the beginning of each new class, I'm supposed to remind you about making donations. You know, I don't like to talk about donations and money, but it's the right thing to do. So I'll just remind you that as an ashram, we don't charge for anything, but as a student, you have a responsibility to support what's going on here. So our request is this: if you come for classes regularly, give some regular donation. A monthly donation would be right. The amount is entirely up to you. But if you're regular, then make a monthly donation. There are a bunch of new options for giving. Like PayPal has some new setup where they don't, PayPal will take some money in the transaction, so they have a new setup where that doesn't happen. Anyway, go to our website, the donations page will give you information on all of that. All right, tomorrow, Sunday, we have our Upadesha Sahasri, our Vedanta class. It's a wonderful text of Shankara at 10 o'clock. followed at 11 o'clock by satsang. Please join us if you can. We'll conclude with our prayers at the altar. Om Ganana Tva Ganapatigam Avamahe Kaving Gavidam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspatahana Shrinvan Uttabasira Sadhanam Om Mahaganapataye Namaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschad Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat.